So Blink Twice, as I mentioned, is the first directorial film from the actress Zoe Kravitz. She's been working on this for about 6 years now. She actually started writing this movie back in 2017. And originally, it was going to be called Pussy Island instead of Blink
Yep.
Twice, but they decided to pivot and change the title. She actually talked about the change of the title recently in the promotion of the movie. She said, quote, not wanting to put it on a poster or a billboard or a kiosk in terms of speaking about the Motion Picture Association of America. And after researching it, women were offended by the word, and women seeing the title were saying, I don't want to see that movie, which is the part of the reason I wanted to try and use the word and reclaim it, but to not make it something that was so uncomfortable with using. And so they decided to go ahead and change it to Blink Twice recently. Which I do kind of find a little funny because last year I saw a movie called Dicks the Musical, and that had a wide
Yeah.
release and was on
Yeah.
ticket stubs and everything. But here we are, Pussy Island, renamed to Blink Twice, and this is her first feature film. She's been obviously working a very long time as an actress, but decided to step behind the camera and assemble a really, really talented on-screen cast here for this film that just recently premiered this past weekend, and certainly has a bit of hype and a bit of conversation around it. Also, it's important to note that Channing Tatum, one of the stars of this movie, obviously her and Channing Tatum are both dating currently, but he is sort of being used front and centered for the marketing for this film, alongside the rest of this ensemble cast. But this is a movie that we got a chance to check out over the past few days that we wanted to come here and talk about. So with all of that out the way, man, I will pass it to you. What do you think about this new thriller film, Blink Twice?
Yeah, I was pretty excited for Blink Twice. I really liked the trailer. It got me intrigued. I like Channing Tatum. I was very excited to see Zoe Kravitz's directorial debut and see what she had, because recently she has been part of some really cool things between the Batman, and she was in that movie Kimmy, and she's just been kind of around and doing a lot. And so I know, as a girl who she seems to just love cinema. I was like, man, I wonder what she can pull out in her directorial debut. And I think it's fine. I think it's an okay directorial debut. I don't think there's anything that blew my socks off technically, but nor did I really hate anything about this film. I think it's a very fun, watchable movie. Again, this group of friends, legit, it's funny because I understand why, after watching it, why it's called Pussy Island. You're like, yeah, I know why it's called that, but this group of friends really they go to this island, probably shouldn't be there, and some crazy stuff happens. I think the thing about this movie that, in watching it, that was so weird for me, is there's so many movies like this, I think. And so again, it was a fine watch, but I was like, I think I can predict everything that's happening here. And I think that's just unfortunate, maybe even timing. Like, maybe if this movie had came out 5-6 years ago, I wouldn't feel like this. But um after seeing movies like, I don't know, Get Out, and what's the Cronenberg movie, where they it's like a getaway, and what's the name of that movie?
Oh, I'm not. I'm
Dang, they're on the
blanking on
island
what that
too.
one.
No, yeah, I'll think about it in a sec. But like that, and it's just, I don't know. It's a film that definitely feels like I had seen it before. All these little beats feel familiar, but the cast is a great time. Everybody on screen, I think, is having a fun time with what they're doing. And I think watching them work and maneuver, because it is a decent ensemble cast. And I don't know what I thought going into it, but I thought it would be even more focused than what it was. But no, a lot of people actually do get shine in this film, in a way that's like, oh yeah, you are here. Oh yeah, you're part of the cast too. So it's really cool to see you there, between like Aria Arjona and Naomi Aki and Channing Tatum. Like, there was a lot of back and forth between the characters, and a lot of different, I think, relationships happening on screen. But it was really cool to see, man. But overall, it's a fine film, fine directorial debut. I like the suspense, I like the thrills. But yeah, it just felt like a film I've seen before, and I think that's the unfortunate part of it for me. It doesn't quite hit their hammer on the head in terms of telling, I think, a story that felt super fresh or super new for me. But I still enjoyed the watch for what it was.
Yeah, ultimately, I think Blink Twice as a directorial effort for Zoe Kravitz, it's a decent first outing, and ultimately it shows a really promising future for her and what she can accomplish down the road. On the positive side of things, I will say that Blink Twice has a really, really good sense of visual style and great visual sensibilities. The editing is pretty sharp. There's some really, really great usage of music cues throughout this movie. Even some of the cinematography across the board was really well done, and also just the aesthetic of what they were going for, sort of creating a horror movie in the daylight, which we've seen done before, especially
Mhm,
over recent years. I think was a pretty effective tool that Zoe Kravitz employed throughout the film to sort of, I guess, make it a little bit more of an unnerving experience, just knowing that any sort of evil or any sort of transgressive acts that take place, it doesn't matter what time of day it is. But ultimately, Blink Twice is a movie that would have been more effective if it had come out in 2017 or 2018. This is certainly falling in line with, I guess, what I would call the Me Too thrillers of the past 5 or 6 years that
mhm,
we've gotten. There's certainly apt conversations and comparisons that can be made with Get Out, because you are witnessing people sort of be, without giving anything away, sort of be hypnotized and taken to a place against their will. You are sort of witnessing, I think, a similar sort of moral a moral conundrum against women when you think about films like Promising Young Woman.
mhm,
These are definitely things in which we've seen done a lot recently. Even a film like Don't Worry, Darling, I think there's a lot of similarities that can be drawn to
mhm,
that as well. That came out a couple of years ago. So it's definitely falling in line with those Me Too thrillers of the past few years, but it's also, I guess, a part of this this ether rich cinematic universe that's been developing. When you think about movies like The Menu or Triangle of Sadness, films like that, in which you're watching people with extraordinary amounts of wealth kind of get what's coming to them ultimately. And I think because of that, just because there's just so many examples of these films in the past few years, this one doesn't necessarily offer up anything that's all that shocking or surprising or new or revelatory. And that was kind of my experience watching Blink Twice, where I certainly understand the message of the film. I understand
mhm,
that men are trash and can be very terrible human beings and obviously take advantage of people whenever they have just extraordinary amounts of power, and they do these really, really underhanded, really criminally minded things. But I don't know if Blink Twice has anything more to say than that. The fact that just men are terrible. What else is it really saying? What is the movie really about? And also, for me, just from a suspense level, there was no shock or awe, because you could just already tell from the get go by the way the movie's edited, by just sort of the weird nature of some of the characters. You just already know that something bad is going to go down. You already know that
mhm,
what you're watching isn't necessarily the actual perception of what's going down, at this particular location. I think that that's just kind of like an unfortunate aspect of it, to where, if it came out in 2017 or 2018, when this was still sort of an early genre that was developing, it would have been more effective. But now we just have so many examples of this, where you're
mhm,
already sort of taught and meant to go into these movies already not trusting any of the characters for the most part. And I think when you enter into a movie with that sort of mindset, and you sort of know that there's something underhanded going on, you know that there's some ulterior motives and something sinister in the background is happening, that removes a lot of the suspense. And in order to combat that, you have to sort of add on an additional layer, say something that's really important, say something about the characters, maybe enlighten us in a certain type of way. I do think that there are films out there that have done that successfully.
mhm,
Or go the other way and just lean completely into the genre of like what you're going for, like this really thriller, high intense, sort of situation. Like just lean all the way into that. I think about the movie that came out a couple of years ago with Sebastian Stan, Fresh, where it was somewhat
mhm,
similar to this. It was somewhat of a similar thriller, but that was just more of a genre play. I don't think it tried to really incorporate any messaging into the movie. Whereas I feel like
yeah,
here with Blink Twice, there certainly was a message that they wanted to convey, but it's not
mhm,
it's not a message that we don't already know or already haven't seen multiple times. So
right,
I just don't think it was really that effective, unfortunately. But there are a lot of people in this movie that you're gonna recognize and you're gonna see and you're gonna like. I mean, Gina Davis was a great surprise. Christian Slater is here. Haley Joel Osment, like a lot of these actors who you've seen their faces plenty of times before, and it's
mhm,
like, oh, this is interesting that they're a part of this movie. That was nice to see. But I do think that by the end of it, if you do check out this movie, probably one of the biggest divisive elements is going to be the ending itself, which I won't give
That's true.
away, but I don't know. I just don't think a lot of people are going to
Yeah,
like that ending.
yeah.
It's a
Even
choice.
I was like,
Yeah,
I don't
it's a
know.
really bold choice. It's I don't know what it says about society or what it's supposed to say at the end of the day, but it's going to be a really really bold choice that it's either going to work for you or I think for a lot of people it probably won't. So again, not a terrible film, just a movie that doesn't really have anything to say, if you ask me. But I do again
Oh,
think
and
that Zoe Kravitz has a bright future ahead of her.
Infinity Pool is the movie I was thinking about. That was
Oh,
it.
Infinity Pool, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, Cronenberg's son, yeah, yeah, yeah. The recent one that
yeah,
came out,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, I think she does have a promising future ahead of her. I would like to see, of course, just like other projects and other things that she wants to tackle, because she certainly has an eye for it. She exhibited so much
Mhm.
talent. Again, just from behind the camera, in terms of what she can be capable of from a technical standpoint and to a certain extent from a story standpoint, but definitely want to see her push further and farther in the future. But folks, those are all of our thoughts on the brand new thriller film Blink Twice. If you've checked this out, definitely hit us up and let us know what you think.